Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, it's often the music that is the thing that elevates material to the next level. And guess what? If you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals and we pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and in a conversational fashion. And you know, if you like how we do things around here, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that you do, because quite frankly, you're listening right now. And if you are, hit that subscribe button. Give us a like, the old 5-star rating on your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere. Places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on the Facebook, we're on the Twitter, we're on the Instagram, we're on the TikTok, we're on the Letterboxd, we're on the Tumblr. We're pretty much everywhere. Again, we're omnipresent. At In the Seats, give us a follow for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca, for all the latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large. Because, you know, if we love to watch it and write about it and talk about it, guess what? We love it even more when you come by and read about it and listen about it. So please, pay us a visit. On this episode, sorry, I had to swallow there. We got a good one. We're diving into the world of Yellowstone. It is the world's favorite show. I watch it, you watch it. Don't deny it. We're all there at some point. And I mean, I think we're about halfway through season 5 right now. They're taking a break, and there'll be more coming soon before it all wraps up, and then we get the prequel show with Matthew McConaughey, or who knows what's going on that front. But that will be absolutely interesting in this world that Taylor Sheridan and his team have produced, and it's just been so much fun to watch. But as a part of that, we had the unique pleasure of sitting down and talking with one of the key team members of this universe, something we don't always think about, but something that is vitally important. It's the music to a show like this, and what sort of that job entails. And we talked with the woman who is the music supervisor for Yellowstone, Andrea von Foerster. We asked about sort of what the job entails, how she got into it, challenges, positives, negatives, the whole 9 yards. But it was a fun talk. And again, if you've always been fascinated about sort of how music gets onto shows and sort of those decisions that get made, I think you'll enjoy this talk. But as always, you know, if you're not caught up yet with Yellowstone on your favorite streaming provider, be it Paramount Plus or Prime, which I do think has 1 through 4, and then Paramount Plus has 5, depending on your region. Catch up and enjoy everything that is Yellowstone. But first, enjoy our talk with the music supervisor, Andrea von Foerster, because between you and me, it is a darn good one. Thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate this.
Indeed, thank you.
Now, I mean, I guess my first question is, and this is probably the loaded one, but, you know, I always think I know what a music supervisor does, but I don't actually know. And I mean, I don't think a lot of people actually know. Like, what entail, like, what sort of encompasses the job that you have when it comes to working on a show like Yellowstone? Like, where are you in the process?
Fantastic question. Yeah, to be honest, most people do not know what a music supervisor is or does. And the interesting part about it is it's a pretty fluid gig. So from job to job, it does change.
Right.
So with Yellowstone, it's a little more encompassing than some shows because we do have on cameras. So I work with Taylor, and we, you know, kind of choose which artists we want to have on camera to perform and which songs they perform. And then we arrange all the backline equipment, meaning all of the, you know, amps and the instruments and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But then also just choosing the music, you know, I've been on a hunt, you know, steadily for 5 years for the right music for our show, because it's a very narrow lane of what we use.
Right.
And so Taylor, you know, like, you know, say, hey, I heard this, you know, song, let's use this. And then I send him stuff throughout the year And so it's a constant collaboration back and forth. And also for me, not every supervisor does their own licensing, but I clear all the songs as well. So
Okay.
making sure that it's creative and making sure you're on budget and on time.
Well, because I mean, I can imagine, it's you get all the colors of the rainbow. Because I mean, I was looking through your sort of extensive credit list, and I mean, I
Yeah.
see something like 500 Days of Summer, and I'm like, that's a very specific soundtrack. But I can also
Yeah.
imagine there are other jobs where it's like, okay, we lock picture in 6 weeks, find me a song.
The shortest amount of time I was ever hired on something, which I joke was my best paying gig, was because I got hired the day it started mixing, and I literally had 5 days to get all of the songs
Oh
pitched
my
and clear.
God.
Yeah, and we did it. But yeah, it was
That's wild.
well, and on 500 Days of Summer, I got hired before we were even greenlit to clear the karaoke songs. So you can get hired at any point in the process. And so that makes a big difference on what you do as well. Sometimes you're also, somebody else might have been on and then you replace them or, whatever. So there's a lot of different scenarios, but most of the things I work on are usually fairly specific.
Is there a preference? Because I mean, I could imagine something like, Yellowstone, where you're being brought in kind of fairly early. There's a bit more of a comfort level versus like, like you said, 5 days, here you go.
I think it depends. I have found that, you kind of get hired for the things that suit you best anyway. Sometimes like if I don't get a job, I see it and I go, oh, if that's what they wanted, I wasn't right for that,
Right.
like, so, and I'm pretty good at knowing what I'm right for. And so for Yellowstone, I felt, pretty strongly without even knowing too much about the show. And then it's been one of the best things I've ever worked on in my life. I love working with Taylor. I love what we use. And so it's, mainly red dirt country, Texas and Oklahoma kind of storytelling style music versus sort of more produced music. And we like storytellers and we don't want too much production. And that tends to be Taylor's taste overall for a lot of the projects I've worked on with him.
So, I mean, is a part of your job just purely listening to stuff like constantly?
I never am not listening to music or singing or humming, and it drives everyone insane. But I just, if there's music playing and I'm talking to someone, I will not hear a single word they say. I can only hear the music. It's just one of those things where it's just how my brain is trained. But yeah, I am constantly listening to music and looking for new music and looking online and looking and, on, I'm not really on social media, but only Twitter. But I'm just always looking. I go to shows, I'll see the opening act, all the rest of it. So I'm constantly on the hunt.
No, I mean, I've got to ask, what got you into this business? And I mean, specifically of music coordination and sort of doing this job.
It was accidentally on purpose. I was a film production student at USC major, and I double minored in music business and music recording. And I then got a job at a temp agency that dealt with Disney. And I worked in the soundtrack department for live action features. And so I worked as a temp on High Fidelity, Coyote Ugly, Armageddon.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's funny because now I actually just music supervised Ben Affleck's movie Air, and so it's like full circle that my first entertainment job was working on Armageddon, and then like it was just fun. But so then I worked there, and then they said they'd hire me, but I had one more year of college, and then they did actually hire me out of college a year later. And then I just kept getting supervision jobs in between, also working like I always had 3 jobs at one time. I don't like being bored. So I also worked production gigs as well, but music just kept coming back. So I was like, okay, this is what I do now. So I had to, learn the clearance side of things and all the rest of it. And I love putting the pieces together and like fulfilling the vision of the director or the showrunner and of the project and what I think the fans will, appreciate about the show as well. So it's really nice putting everything together and the codependent job that it is.
Can you talk a little bit about just sort of the intricacies of trying to clear stuff? Because I mean, I even think of something on something else you work on, like 1923. I can imagine it's a very narrow window to not just find music, but to find somebody who's holding rights to stuff. Because I mean, especially with so many of these songs and so many of the music from the era, I mean, I can imagine that actually rights holding and clearance can be a bit of a nightmare.
It can, especially on the period pieces. So like on 1883 and 1923, it's pre-public domain now, depending on when an author died or a composer died. So so I had to have a lot of things created for 1883. And so, it was interesting because, you know, there's not a lot of libraries even have sort of like saloon and parlor piano that's appropriate to the time, because they'll have rag music, but that's from the 1900s, not the 1800s. And so, and like certain jazz songs, and you have a lot of public domain songs that you can think of, like Oh Susanna and things like that. They're not from the year you think they are. So for 1883, everything that I kept thinking of would be like 1890s, not 1883. I'm like, damn, you know. And so then, and like 1923, same thing. Like there was just a lot of things that there's not a lot of recorded music until the 1890s on wax cylinders, you know. And so 1923, there's certainly more recordings, but you know, it was a lot of work. So we had a lot of things created. And then I'm on bass reeves for Taylor now as well. And that's 1877 for the most part. And that's even harder. So trying to find if something is public domain, and is it public domain worldwide, because there's different laws in every single country. So in some cases you're clearing only for outside the US, but it's public domain for the US. It's like a lot of forensic detective work trying to figure out who owns copyrights for songs that old.
That's a wild job, but I mean, I can just tell by talking to you, you love it. But I mean, there are so many layers that have me curious about it as well. I mean, even something that you worked on, like about Jaco Pastorius. I mean, you're dealing with one artist. Is that easy, or is that sort of exceptionally harder in a different way?
No, that one was so hard because there were so many songs in that film that weren't Jaco. You know what I mean? Like, so there was the Jaco stuff was already taken care of. The family was involved, you know. So before I still had to clear a bunch of stuff, but, you know, but for the most part, it was also going out to Rush and, you know, Pat Metheny and, you know, all the rest of all the other people that we have in the film, Joni Mitchell, you know, like all the rest of it. And so, and also you don't know like who necessarily has the rights to certain songs. Fine, you find that, but then you need to get approval, but then you have to tell them why, you know, it's important. It's a Jaco documentary. You know what I mean? Like that means something. It's a part of history. You know, he should be known. But then somebody's sick and then you can't get an answer for a month, you know, I mean, whatever. Yeah. So it's like, and you have deadlines, and how much do you push? And so it's a delicate balance of you know, trying to get what you want and make the production happy, and then not make everybody angry trying to get it.
What is the creative payoff for you on jobs like this? Is it finding those kind of sort of deep cuts that maybe people wouldn't expect?
It's not even deep cuts, it's new artists. Like, so like for Yellowstone, I mean, the fact that, you know, like Taylor was responsible for Whiskey Myers and Shane Smith and the Saints. And then I found, oh, sorry, that was very loud. And then I found Lainey Wilson and Zach Bryan. And so, you know, it's like then getting to, you know, bring people into the fold, and, you know, people have to trust you that, you know, when Yellowstone hadn't started, I'm like, hey, we have a limited budget. This is an amazing show. Believe me. And, you know, and they did. And so it worked out, but it took a very long time for a lot of people to, you know, see the show. I mean, we were #1 from the first season, but it took a while to get to the coasts. So, you know, it's like now everyone's like, oh, this music. And I'm like, we've been here and the music's been here. So it's just really funny fun to be able to, you know, share our favorite music with people and give people a leg up and be a part of their story.
That's fantastic. I love it. And I mean, I'm curious, like in sort of your process of, like you say, accidentally on purpose getting into this side of the business, what are the sort of skill sets that you ultimately had to sort of pick up? Because I mean, again, this job, it's not necessarily one where there's like a straight career path. You know what I mean? It's one of those things that people kind of discover and then learn. But again, like we said before, even on the other side of things, it's, you know, some people think it's like, oh, they're making a mixtape for the movie. It's like, no, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Yeah. Anyone who thinks that, I'm like, stop talking. So, I mean, because like a lot of people think you just listen to music all day, you hang out with bands all day, you make playlists and people just go with it. And I'm like, you know, I have worked on things where people said, you do the music, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're like, I trust you, I hired you, you know, as an extension of me, you go to it. I've had that and it's amazing. But there's also some sense of like, gosh, I hope they like it. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, because there's a little, it's not your project at the end of the day, it's somebody else's and you're working on it. And so even though it's fun to be able to be like, yeah, let's use all this, you never know if someone's gonna be like, nah, that was wrong. And so it's a lot of sort of like getting into people's minds and kind of reading what they want and what they sort of say they want versus what you think they really want, you know, because it's finding the right word. One different word can change what you look for.
For sure.
So it's a lot of nuance in it. And I love the psychology of it. And I love sort of like just tapping into exactly, you know, typically if you can make everyone on the show happy, that's a microcosm of the universe, so you can make your audience happy, you know, because there'll be so many sort of differing opinions. Sometimes everyone's on the same track. I mean, Yellowstone, actually everyone's on board, you know, everyone's like, yep, that's the right song. Great. But Yellowstone is pretty much just me and Taylor, so it's great. And there's the most freedom in it, and it's the most fun. Sorry, my battery's about to die. Hold, please. Just realized that. So yeah, it's really fun to be able to use what you love. You know, there's a lot of projects where you're serving the project, and maybe it's not your favorite music, but you'll find the best music that you do like, because, you know, that's your job. But Yellowstone is like a joy.
No, I mean, I've got to ask, can you think back to maybe sort of your younger days? I mean, with all this experience that you have now, can you think to maybe a moment in a movie or a TV show that, like, something that happened, you know, back when, that you watch now and sort of you get it on sort of that different level, given the use of song sort of in the film with the TV show?
And one of my projects or somebody else's?
I would say, you know, both. Honestly, both.
That's a good question. I've never been asked before. I think sometimes in projects, there's been certain songs that I was not for necessarily, that
Right.
like maybe a director or producer insisted on, that I disagreed on, and I thought it could be something else, but because of budgetary constraints, it's not like any song you would know.
Right.
But I've had on occasion a director or producer say, you know what, you were right. Like the only song now I don't like is the song I insisted on. That's happened twice. And those were both on indie films. And the thing is that, you know, it's their project at the end of the day. So it's like, I want to serve their vision. And so, you know, it's like, they're the most right, you know, they're the boss. But on other projects, I mean, I do have a problem where if I like a project, like any movie or TV show, like I'm with it and I have fun with it, you know, just watching it and enjoying it. But if I don't like a project, I'm especially harsh on the music. So there's certain shows that yeah, there's definitely shows I can't watch because I do not like the music. But overall, I respect what everybody does, because that's what somebody asked for, you know. So it's like, it might not be my aesthetic or my choice, but you know, it's still fun to watch, to see what people do. And also, if there's things out there that you don't like, it's great, because it means that you're that much more right for the things that you're right for.
And you know what? I mean, just in talking to you and sort of getting a little bit of a sense of what your job entails, it really feels like just the need to be flexible is so paramount. And I mean, I'm kind of curious for you, if someone was asking for advice and wanted to get into sort of your side of the business, what, like, is there, you know, could you sum up like a one-line piece of advice that you would give anybody?
Can I do a one paragraph?
Do it.
So the misconception is there. And so everyone who wants to do music supervision usually has a very sharp learning curve
Right.
once they sort of start learning what the job actually is, because it is a lot of paperwork, politics, and psychology. It's also creative, but it is, you know, it's work. It's a job. And so taking classes is great on learning how to do it, you know, so you can do the clearance part, because if you work for another supervisor, which is the best way to get into it, or even interning, at least you're useful, because you know rights and terms and territory and things like that for clearance. But honestly, taking any music job, you know, I mean, maybe not like touring and management, but, you know, like if you work for a label or a publisher, you know, and you work in the sync department, you can learn the other side of what people need, and then you're useful, you know. So it's like learning any kind of side of placing a song and licensing a song is the best way to do it. But also just love music and love entertainment. You know, you can't love your taste more than the project calls for. You know what I mean? Like it's always your filter, but it's your boss's taste, you know? So it's like, well, I mean, it's my taste too, but you know, it depends on what the project is. So having no ego, a very wide range of music taste, and then just having any job in music.
I like that, being useful. No, that's one of those things that tends to get forgotten. But I mean, if you find a way to be useful, you will find a way to keep going. I mean, that's an important thing. But
always, in any job.
Yeah, it's
Where
true.
are you located, by the way?
I'm in Toronto.
Oh, nice, excellent.
Where are you located?
You said the T, not Toronto.
Oh,
I've been to Canada. I'm in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay. All right. But I mean, honestly, just keep up the good work on the show because I mean, again, some of those bands you listed off, like I've been loving some of the music that's been coming out of Yellowstone specifically. But thanks for giving me a little bit of insight on sort of the job because, like I said, it's one of those things where, again, I thought I kind of knew, but obviously I kind of didn't know. I knew a little bit. I didn't know a lot. Now I know a little bit more. But thank you so
I have
much for that.
I have some crazy stories for you one day if you ever want to hear them. But yeah, it gets
One day I
crazy,
will take
especially
you
on
up
indie.
on that.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.